Welcome everybody to after the summer of 2022 to the Outdoor Ministries Institute call. So if you've been getting the emails about this, you will know there was a lot of detail about our Kansas City and potential of people getting most of their money reimbursed to Kansas City. That's what the form link is in the chat. Remind me if new people sign up that they can't, like Kylie, who doesn't really need it because Kylie already has filled out the form, but that form link will be, we'll have to keep putting it in as new people show up so they can get to it. But it's the same link that was in the emails. Let's go around and introduce ourselves. We have a new ED with us and first-time caller, long-time listener, or zero-time listener, first-time caller. I'll introduce myself first. My name is Joe Richards. I'm the executive director at Pierce Williams Summer Camp and Retreat Facility, which is located in St. Thomas and Elgin County. And we serve mainly kids from Elgin County and London area. And I've been here, as Kathy Kohler and I were chatting beforehand, that I just finished my 18th summer here at Pierce Williams. Until somebody tells me I can't do this, I think this is all I know how to do. So I'm all good. Kathy Kohler, why don't you go next?
So I'm Kathy Kohler from Camp Kasota West in Alberta. We're located on Sylvan Lake. And what else should I say? Oh, Joe and I were just talking. We just finished our 27th year of being at camp, and I'm like Joe, I'm going to keep doing it until somebody tells me I can't. That's about it. Robin, you go.
Okay. I'm Robin Murray. I'm a volunteer at Camp Coolery. We do not have an executive director. We just have a volunteer board. And I wear many hats at the camp, usually chaplain though. And we are located, Camp Coolery is located in British Columbia, in the interior, southern interior of British Columbia. We're boat access only, real wilderness camp, no electricity, lot of fun. And I'll pass it off to Kathy because she's next on my screen.
Hi, everybody. I am not an ED, and I am in awe of your work. Thank you so much. I love camp, and I know it changes lives and all that stuff that you know. And I am regional staff for the 3 regions in southwestern Ontario, and part of my portfolio is to support camps in the camping ministry. And I'll invite Laura, or is that too hard for you, Laura? Thanks.
That's fine. Hi, everyone. My name is Laura Swan, and today was my first day at Lambton Center. Yeah, I've been a high school teacher for 20 years, just about, and moving into the camp world. I grew up in the United Church and United Church camps, went to Pierce Williams in the John McPherson days, and went to Guestwood, and went to Minnesotong, and just a few, we moved around a bit. My dad's a United Church minister, retired, not retired. Yeah. And we were at High Park in Sarnia for a little bit, so I've kind of returned close to home. Anyway, I'm really looking forward to this, really excited about it. My husband and my 16-month-old are still living in Hamilton for the next 6 weeks until we can fully transition down here. And yeah, he's an Anglican priest, and so he will be looking for a new parish down this way as well. So I'm excited to be here. Thanks for welcoming me in.
Awesome. Dan, why don't you go next?
Thank you, Brother Joe. And welcome, Laura. I was once the director at Lambton Center many moons ago. I'm the executive director now at Kennesari Camp, which is the camp that Joe and I owe our existence to because our parents met there in the mid 60s. They may have met if they weren't at camp, but they may not have. So been doing this for, well, we worked at camp since the 80s, but been back in this role just for the last part-time for 3 years, and then the last 4 years or 3 years now full-time. So I will pass it on to Brendan.
Thanks, Dan. Brendan Turner, I'm the executive director at Sparrow Lake Camp, and I've been at Sparrow Lake since my first summer was 2019, and my second real summer was 2022. And I've been working in camp, I think, since I was about 17 years old, and that was a couple decades ago, and maybe more. And I'll pass it on to Rick, who's on the move.
You're on mute, Rick. You're on mute. Now he's hiding from.
There we go.
Oh, there he is. Okay.
Okay. I'm just coming back from dinner thing. But anyways, I'm the soon to be retiring executive director at Lambton Center. Quite excited to have Laura on board for her first day. And it's been 6 years for me at Lambton Center, and looking forward to new adventures that are coming my way in the next couple of months. And we've had a full summer with camps and stuff, almost kind of going back to normal. So, which was nice this year. And I can't see who else is all on there, so I'll pass it on to whoever else. Joe, who else hasn't shared yet?
Why don't we pass it on to Gwen?
Hello. And first I need to say hello to Kathy, who's right next to me on the screen. Kathy and I worked together for about 4 years on the Alberta Camping Association board. And I have just started at Camp Pringle, which is on Vancouver Island. I was here since June 15th. And so we've just been through a busy summer and trying to figure out where things are going from here. So that's me.
Welcome, Gwen. Welcome.
Thank you.
And what's your role at Pringle, Gwen?
I am interim executive director.
Awesome. Kylie, why don't you take it over?
My name's Kylie. I am the executive director for Lumsden Beach Camp in Saskatchewan. This is my first year as ED, but I've been working for this camp for 11 summers now. Yeah, so we'll keep it going. Steve, have you gone?
Hello, I'm Steve. I'm from Camp Lorraine, which is on the Ottawa River, Upper Ottawa Valley. I have two hats. One hat is on the chair of the board for Camp Lorraine. I've been doing that for 9-10 years. My other hat, which I really enjoy, is I'm a camp director for 1 week at the camp. We have 9 or 8 different weeks sort of things. So I'm going to have to actually leave the call around 8. We have another call for we're planning our retirement party for our executive directors, which they're not on the call tonight because they're on a trip somewhere in Europe sort of thing. So we're planning a retirement party for them. They are retiring. I guess December will be their last month with us sort of thing. So, and that would be Ron and Joanne Hartnick. So yeah, so they're still with us until December. So we're going to make them work hard till then sort of thing. So anyways.
That is awesome, Steve. I think Mallory is the only one that has not gone yet.
Awesome. My name's Mallory. I'm at Rainbow Camp. I am the summer camp director, and then I also work year-round doing admin work for a larger organization. Our camp is located in Northern Ontario, up near Sault Ste. Marie, but I am physically in London, Ontario.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. So what we're going to do next is I want you to think about one word that describes your summer, just one word. or 2 or 3. I'm not going to. And if you weren't at camp this summer, just one word that described your summer, and you're going to type it into the chat, but you're not going to hit enter until we say so. What is the one word that you would use to describe your summer? And spelling doesn't count. I call that. No spelling. Spelling doesn't matter. Is everybody ready? 3, 2, 1, and we will hit enter. 3, 2, 1, go for it. Decent, grateful. These are all great. Close. Lovely, full, adaptable, roller coaster, chaotic, awesome, busy, regeneration. Yeah, summer camp this summer was different than any I had experienced, and I'm not sure if there were any issues that, this is an open call tonight, so we can decide what we want to talk about. You can ask questions, you can share stories if you were frustrated this summer, or if you're waiting for Gwen and Laura, there's also well, almost everybody on this call except for Kathy Douglas, and maybe not Steve yet, unless he becomes the executive director. There is a camp full-time discussion that happens on Thursdays during the day that Janice, who's our another outdoor ministries coordinator, she would have sent out an email about, and I don't know. So I don't know when the first one is. Brother Dan will look that up for me because Janice sent that email to us, and we can add someone like Gwen and Laura to it. It happens once a month as well, and it is a place where we can bitch and complain about board members if we so choose, because what happens on the call stays on the call, and we go from there. Not that happens, but the idea of summer. So I want to here at Pierce Williams, we were talking earlier that we have fewer campers than we had in 2019, which we sort of expected, but we had the right number of staff for the right number of campers, and we didn't have and we had all of our positions filled, so we weren't short-staffed in specific areas, so lifeguards or cooks or things of that nature, because I know that cooks is always a big thing in this group. And it is. I don't know how everybody else's summer, how you felt about. How was your first summer, Brendan, after 2 summers away from camp?
It was kind of wild, to be honest. Like, there was a lot of I think overwrought is how I would describe the kind of feeling of it for the first week. I think everyone was just kind of overwhelmed to be back at camp. Our staff were kind of buzzing and twitching for a while, and it took them a couple weeks to kind of just calm down and I think get into the groove of things. And there's always adventures at summer camp, always wild things going on, and this summer was no exception for that. But overall, all of our 1-week sessions were very full. Our 2-week sessions were not as full, but the fact that we had full houses for all of our 1-week sessions, I think, was pretty encouraging for the future. And we were a little short on staff. It would have been good to have maybe 10 more people. We had a couple of people that I had to call on the first day and wake up and ask if they were coming, and they groaned at me and said that they were thinking about getting a full-time job, and I chuckled a little bit and told them good luck and wished them well. But yeah, it was good. The kids, it was just kind of shaking off the dust and getting back at it. That's how I would describe it. Did anyone else, like, kind of by show of hands, have kind of a lot of anxious staff this year? Like, was it okay? Was it just me?
The phrase we used, Brendan, was a lack of self-regulation by the campers, and the staff had a lack of belief in themselves. Almost, they kept saying, "This is all too much," and I'm like, and my phrase would be, rightly or wrongly, is generations of people have done this before you. There is nothing different right now. But rightly or wrong, that's their own choice. I know that a couple of our camps went through some big challenge or some challenges. So I'm interested, Mallory. How can you talk to us about Rainbow Camp and how you guys fared?
We had several big staffing changes. We had several staff members who quit right before camp started, and then our biggest transition was our previous camp director left us at the end of staff training week, right before our first group of campers arrived. So that was a big transition for us. So this summer it was me and then my friend Cal. The two of us stepped up as co-directors, and I'm staying on year-round in the position. So that was quite a bit of transition. Most of our campers didn't notice, so it was more an internal staffing transition, trying to handle that. We also had a number of COVID outbreaks on site, which complicated our summer, despite the fact that we went like significantly above and beyond what we were required to do for COVID. We still had people quarantining on site for 3 of our sessions this summer, because most of our campers fly in, so if they have COVID, we can't send them home. So we had people quarantining on site, including at one point both my administrator and my co-director. That was a fun week. But we made it through.
A show of hands, who had COVID at camp? Yeah. Okay.
My friends who also direct camps who didn't have COVID also didn't test for COVID. That was what I heard.
Well, I only heard that COVID was at camp because we didn't test. People tested when they went home, but we had no outbreaks with symptoms at camp. And I don't know what an outbreak is considered anymore. People, is an outbreak 3 people, 4 people who've confirmed? 2. 2's an outbreak for most things, but anybody else? Rick, how was your last summer at camp?
It was kind of chaotic. We did 2 summers in the midst of COVID without any outbreaks of COVID. And then this summer, we ended up with 1 week where I had enough staff off with COVID that I spent an entire weekend trying to figure out if we had enough staff to run the next week of camp. That was a pretty stressful weekend. We didn't test for COVID as for people coming in, but it was like people getting sick when they got home or whatever, testing at home and then letting us know they had COVID. But 1 week we had COVID in every cabin at camp. And we ended up 4 staff off that one particular week. And so that was kind of crazy. We managed to get through. One of my bigger challenges was trying to find a lifeguard this summer. I kind of jokingly say that I ended up making a lifeguard. I found somebody willing to take all 3 lifeguarding courses, Browns Cross, Medallion, and NLS, in consecutive weeks leading up to camp. And I said, if you finish that, I'll pay for your courses and guarantee you a job. And she did, and worked out well, but it was tense. I couldn't imagine a summer as hot as we had when we had the pool and being able to have to say, kids, you can't use it. It would have been just asking for a mutiny. But we got through the summer. It was that jittery, that anxiousness of staff. We certainly saw that coming into the summer. But I think about way through the summer, our team really gelled together, and we had a great team this year. A young team, a lot of young campers. Sometimes a lot of them were first-time jobs. They've been to camp, but had never had very much camp counselor experience, other than maybe through the LIT program. But it was a good summer that way. Good staff, good leadership team. Not near the drama that I've seen sometimes at other years, but they worked well together. And maybe because we had some staff that were off, they kind of pulled together to cover for each other, because a lot of times our senior staff, even I had 1 week where I took on the role of counselor for the week because we needed another male counselor on that. So interesting summer, but great fun once you don't worry about the stressful stuff and just enjoy it. And kids loved it, and that's what's important. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So lots of people had trouble finding lifeguards?
Oh.
At this point, I can tell you what happened at Pierce Williams. We had 5 people on staff with NLS.
We also had 5 lifeguards on site. This is the first summer we have not been short on lifeguards.
but none of them were willing to move on to somewhere else because they were all asked about helping out another camp. But because camp hadn't happened for most of them in 2 years, or they hadn't worked at a camp, they wanted Pierce to be their first experience with that. And I was like, more power to you. Because I still need you, whether you're a lifeguard or not, in another role. So it was all fine. But I did feel like I wasn't going to broadcast that information in June as we went through. Gwen, how was your summer? You had some of my old staff members at camp.
I was just going to say, I stole a few of yours. We had 3 that were former Pierce Williams staff who came out to the West Coast. One of them came out as our cook. Other one was our Faith Vet Quest coordinator. And then Maggie stepped up to be my assistant program coordinator director. So I had them all in fairly significant roles. It was an interesting summer. I was hired beginning of April, along with a new executive director at Camp Pringle. I was hired to be the office administrator. And then Brian decided that camp really wasn't all he had signed up for and left the middle of June. And I moved into the exec director role and found out on June 15th that no planning had been done for summer at all. So I kind of went into a whirlwind, and I just basically ignored all the office work that needed to be done for rentals and everything, and ran into summer camp mode and put a team together. And I, like some of the rest of you, I ended up, some weeks we were so short staffed that I ended up working with groups of kids, doing archery and doing that kind of stuff. So it was a very chaotic summer from my perspective, and the staff, because we were so short staffed, ended up doing 2 and 3 roles, which was challenging for them. But the kids who were able to come all had an awesome summer. So from that perspective, I think it was a really good beginning to rebuilding from what COVID, has left us with. It was a really good rebuilding summer. And I was just going through the statistics, and I had almost as many kids on the wait list as I actually had campers, which bodes good for moving on if we can find staff. That's the big thing for us, is having enough staff that we can actually have cabin groups is a big challenge. So it was challenging, but we made it through, and we have a good base to start with again and to rebuild.
Well, that sounds like a challenge that you stepped up to, and hopefully it doesn't cause you to run away from camp. But I think, we had the same. A lot of staff just felt overwhelmed sometimes, as Brendan was saying. The other thing that we chose at Pierce Williams not to do was we didn't fight kids who wanted to go home. In the past, we would have long chats about things, and you're like, nope, you're threatening self-harm or suicide or whatnot. Even if they're like, oh no, I was just joking, doesn't matter. We're not dealing with it. We had a CIT walk-off site the second day they were here, and we're just like, okay, great, let's get you a ride and get you back on site to get you home. So it was great. Kylie, how was your first summer as ED?
Yeah, it was. It sounds pretty similar to everyone else's. I found it really hard. Our staff was good, like we were staffed, but we run on volunteers for like kitchen help and our medical volunteer. And so I found it really hard to find volunteers who are typically like parents who want to spend a week out at camp. I think just because they haven't been away from their kids in 2 years and they wanted to do something not related to their kids, which is totally understandable. But I stepped in to be the nurse a couple of times. Then my cook quit 2 weeks left. So I stepped in to cook for a couple of days, and I had to be the lifeguard for a couple. And so it sounds like pretty similar. I just jumped in wherever was needed. numbers were good. We had a few cases, and yeah, they just get sent home really quick, and that's kind of nice because it's kind of like, okay, that's one thing and it's gone. It's not a let's continue with this for the rest of the summer. But yeah, it was definitely like a learning curve throughout just talking. I had two really great co-directors though who have backgrounds in like social work and youth care. And so that was really great to have like a solid base of that wasn't the problem. It was just like all other site stuff also went, like our water system shut down for a couple weeks too. That was fun. But yeah, I think I jumped into the deep end, so it's good. And I'll just learn from here and hopefully it gets easier.
We make the assumption that every summer will be easier than this one. There you go.
Yeah, I hope so.
Does anybody else want to share about their summer before we get on to some questions about the rest of the year for these calls?
Sure, I'll share some little bit of coolery. We had city pools in the area shut down because they couldn't get lifeguards. Like the lifeguard shortage was severe, so we just made the decision that we were going to pay a ridiculous amount of money for a lifeguard, and it worked. So, like all the rest, the lifeguard was paid so much more than the rest of the staff. It felt wrong, but we couldn't have camp. And we ended up with the heat dome, and like we really couldn't have had camp without a lifeguard. We would have had heat stroke all over the place. But the thing that was new for us this summer is this was the first time we ever got paid program staff. Our program staff has always been volunteers, and we applied for Canada Summer Jobs, and we've been denied before repeatedly. And this time, all of a sudden, they gave us just four positions. So it was only going to be a few staff that were consistent all summer that were paid, and the rest, volunteers week by week. We weren't quite prepared for that. So it didn't go as smoothly as we'd hoped. We need more, expectations and supervision and stuff in place, because we don't have an executive director. Everybody else is a volunteer. So how do you supervise paid? Like we've supervised the cooks and the maintenance people and the lifeguard for years. They've always been paid, but program staff, we didn't really have a system in place. So it was a sharp learning curve. The other thing was we were hoping for 2 male applicants and 2 female applicants. We got 3 female applicants, 2 of whom were transgender. And we ended up with not filling the 3rd or the 4th position. And so that was a new challenge, and it went really, really, really well. But that was not what we were expecting. We were expecting a bunch of applications, and we would select 2 male and 2 female, and now we've had to review that kind of old mindset. And so it was really nice to have those 2 transgender women come in and just like blow our minds. Like, all right, we're starting this new. Maybe we can really start it new and not stick to our old mindset. So that was pretty cool. Yeah, a lot of learning. A lot of learning. But I think we're going to be better and stronger. And we were up in numbers over the past years. This was our biggest enrollment probably in 2 decades.
It's amazing.
Yeah, and it was, it's not huge, but it was up. So, and we do have that limitation of needing volunteers. So if we can't staff it. Like we weren't at capacity ever as far as our facility, but we were at capacity staffing wise. So there you cut it off. So that was our summer. And our washroom is still not finished. It was flattened by a tree in 2020.
Still arguing with insurance?
A bit, yeah. The insurance still isn't completely done, but the region, the Pacific Mountain region, has been amazing and incredible to work with. So they've been with us every step of the way, and they fronted money when the insurance company didn't line up with our camp schedule, and the Pacific Mountain region has been great, and there's a lot of healing work that needed to be done there, and it's really working. So yeah, but we're still not to ribbon cutting because we still have other delays, and with we have a railroad track going through, and we have to cooperate with the railroad on building a flood berm to protect the wash house. The building inspector wanted that, but it has to go on the right of way that belongs to the railroad track. So now we're dealing with CP rail, and that is slowing things down. But we keep at it, and our temporary washrooms work just fine. So they're just going to disintegrate without electricity to run the fans. So they're not a permanent solution for us. We need our new building, which is concrete. It's ugly as all get out. It's cinder block, but it will not decay without electricity to run fans, exhaust fans, because most washrooms have to have exhaust fans where they disintegrate, which is what happened to our last one before it got hit by a tree.
Did you cut that tree down, Robin?
Did not. There were root balls and everything to prove it. And it actually was really inconvenient, the timing, because then we didn't have a washroom for our building crew to build the washroom. So that slowed us down because we had to get temporary washrooms in. But you couldn't get temporary washrooms during the pandemic because all the construction companies needed double the number of washrooms, and they had hogged them all up, and there weren't any on the market. And anyway, it was complicated. But yeah, that tree falling on it though did balance the budget with insurance eventually. So no, I did not cut it down. I had been sorely tempted to do something like that before we started the new washroom, but when the stall door came off in my hand one day, but anyway.
Excellent. Anybody else want to share about their summer? On the topic of trans staff, one of the things we had to do this summer is we had a lot more non-gender cabins, meaning that somebody of the counselor didn't match the gender of the cabin, and zero of our parents complained or even asked questions about it. And we're lucky because our counselors don't need to sleep in the same cabins, right? So, but it worked out. Nobody questioned it. Nobody complained. Some of our female staff figured out that they do not like working with, let's say, preteen boys, right? Like they're like, man, the whole thing smells. And I'm like, yeah, welcome to life. So that is the way this works. A couple of things, if nobody else wants to share, feel free to cut in. We have a bunch of calls planned, one a month for the next 10 months until June. And we have funds available to us to get in speakers or people who can help us chat. So the idea of, I don't know if there's someone out there who can help us with staffing. I think staffing is a an anomaly that's being felt in all industries right now. Mallory, I love the idea of an NLS instructor. My son is actually taking that course currently. And so these are the things we can talk about. But I don't know, the list that we had from earlier in the year was potentially someone to talk to us about insurance, but I'm not sure what that discussion is about insurance. Social media and the future of advertising was brought up. Staffing 2022 challenges, Canada Summer Jobs, ? So I'm not sure if that's a conversation that will continue to happen. Can you raise your hand if you got Canada Summer Jobs at your camp? Okay. And then can I ask a personal question about Canada Summer Jobs? Does anybody get more than 8 weeks of employment for a position? Or is it, okay. Because I talked with one of the Sheriff camps, Camp Sheriff in Ottawa, and they got some like 16-week positions, which is great because what I find with Canada Summer Jobs, and I'm sure that others do, I put my like leadership team on Canada Summer Jobs and they say, great, you have 8 weeks, but the start date is this day. But then you have all these counselors and the start date is the end of June. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to start them at different times because I need them to supervise the counselors. And they're like, well, why didn't you start on time? And I'm like, that's not the way I'm about to go through this. So it is what it is. So
I think, Joe, partly it depends on the individual who is in charge of the portfolio from Canada Summer Jobs. I know last summer, the place I worked last summer, we had like 25 8-week grants. And I said, like, can't we make half that many 16-week grants? And they were like, no, it has to be different people. So it really depends on who's in charge of your Canada Summer Jobs, how flexible they are.
Yeah. Other topics, we had grant writing for staffing and grant writing for general things, site security. Does anybody have a topic? And you can type it into the chat or verbally ask us, because I'm interested about what we want to learn over the next, let's say, 6 months that we can actually put into practice before next summer. Because there comes a transition time where we can learn about things in April, May, and June, but I'm not sure how much of them. Apparently, Gwen can install all of those changes after the middle of June and make things happen. And that's great. That's amazing. Not that you want to. You don't want to do that. But that's where we're at, is trying to figure out what those topics will be that are most useful to our camps across Canada. Because as a reminder, there are between 50 and 55 United Church camps. We range on these calls everywhere from, 61 people is our most that we've had in the last few years, but we generally get somewhere around 20 people on the calls and chatting. So if you don't have, go ahead.
I had an interesting conversation today because I did a little webinar with someone, and it was about the importance of contracts and what should be on contracts and how to make them like legally. And they wanted me to pay like some exorbitant fee to have them look at my contracts. And I'm wondering if that's something that is sort of across the board. Are our policies meeting regulations, and are the resulting papers that come out of those policies, and are we following current legislations? Now, I know we represent a few different provinces, but this individual was out of Ontario, but they were very knowledgeable about regulations, both like work safe kind of regulations and those kind of legislations. Anyways, we don't have thousands of dollars to put into it as a camp. And so I'm wondering if there's a way that as a collective, we can share some kind of a, I don't know if other people, if other people are worried about that or not, but I've taken over, we have really old contracts and I'm not certain that we're meeting legislation with them, so.
Yeah, that is an excellent one, and there are something like that is where we do have some funds available to see if there's somewhere that we can review all of our staff contracts to see what the issues are. I don't know who that person is, but Gwen, if you can put me in touch with who did your webinar, that would be great. Because it's you know, and I don't know if general counsel's council, is that what it is? General counsel's council, which we also have some access to, but not full access to. So that might be a question for Bev Ogue as well to ask. I can do that. So yeah, mental health training, Mallory put in. We are working at Pierce Williams. We're working with an alumni who's a psychologist, or a licensed social worker, two different things, I know, and through a crisis response manual. And it's really just a whole bunch of like if this then that mandates, and then we would keep her on our on-call basis to have people call from camp, right? Because one of the challenges with an EPA, as Brendan asked for, is that like, so I've called the United Churches EPA because we're a pension and benefits here at Pierce Williams on the United Church plan, and it took them 2.5 weeks to get back to me to schedule someone to talk to me. And I was like, well, that's not really effective. It doesn't solve short-term problems. And so what we did is we reached out to one of our previous program directors who's a social worker, and she did up this whole plan for us at no cost. But the idea is that we would keep her on call as someone who we would, because some of the end of those flow charts is, needs to talk to the camp social worker before going back to, right? So be it a camp or a staff, so that they can, but an interesting, and that was always my challenge with an EPA, is that they're just so slow. They suck at that. It's a good one. Laura, what do you think you need as a brand spanking new ED?
Based on day one today, I would say just really this, like just a list of people that I can call and say, what about this? What about this? I think would be good. I would love to hear some different, maybe not necessarily in the group setting, but some different stories or perspectives on how your boards are running and how your organizational structure is working or not working, what things are being implemented to try and maybe improve the efficiency of board work. But yeah, I think for me, just being able to reach out.
Yeah. I think boards are a huge issue, and everyone here is a. So Robin, are you on the board at Coolery?
I am. Yeah.
So everyone else here, I don't know, Kathy, if you're a board member as well as the camp person, but yeah, boards are a make or break thing for most camp people in the end. But it's a great discussion piece for people to have and be able to reach out to. If you have more things that, or something that you would like to be put in the queue for a conversation or a call, a monthly call, you can feel free to email me directly joe@campisbetter.com. I wanted to take the next 14 minutes to talk, I don't need the whole time. I want to talk about and answer any questions about Kansas City and the PCCA and Campfire Collective Conference. The form I've put in again, so that form is for me, for myself and Janice and the coordinators to track who applies so that we know how sort of a ballpark of how many dollars in funding we will be spending. For those who don't know, the plan is to get as many Canadian United Church of Canada camp people to the Presbyterian Church Camp and Conference Association's annual gathering, which is being held in Kansas City. Brother Dan will put the link to the conference in the chat. And it is, the OMI is paying 90% of your travel. So if your plane ticket costs $600, OMI will cover, what is that, 540? Have I done the math correctly there? So 540. And if you drive to the airport, right, and you have 100 kilometers and it's 46 cents, I believe currently is what the United Church is paying. So we'll do 90% of that travel as well. We do ask that you find the least expensive mode of travel for us, meaning that if you can't, well, a reasonable mode of travel, meaning that if you, so if you drive your car from here to Kansas City, it actually costs less to rent a car and pay for gas than it does for us to pay you kilometers, right? So that's where the United Church has some write-up on this that I've read years ago, and I don't quite know where it is. But so the idea is that 90% of your travel is covered by OMI, and 100% of your registration fee is covered by OMI. And then you can apply to the United Church's Vision Fund for an additional $500 Canadian. And that should leave you.
Correction, Joe. You said 100% of your registration fee. You meant $100.
I do mean $100 off of your registration fee. And that $500 from the United Church Vision Fund can help you cover the rest of your registration fee. With current exchange rates, it will come close. And so really all you're in for is 10% of your travel in the end is the goal. And we figured that would be a fair thing for even Kylie flying out from Saskatchewan, that 10% of her travel is a bit more than 10% of our travel, but life goes on. We're all good. The link to the Google form, once you fill it out, I will send you a partially pre-filled Vision Fund application so that all of those hard answers about how it applies to your ministry and blah, 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 I filled a lot of those out, and you can edit it, or you can just, I'm sure Amy Crawford would love to see all the exact same answers. And then the finances are just going to be slightly different because you need to figure out what your travel is, if that makes sense. And there are a variety, there's levels. So the way that Americans and the PCCA have been doing their conference for years is there's three costs. There's the cost for the conference fee, there's the food plan cost, and there's the accommodations cost. And so you get the conference fee and the food plan are two things. So you can opt out of the food plan, that's fine. The accommodations, they have various levels of accommodation. So you can choose to bunk with someone, or you can choose to bunk with two other people, and your costs go up and down. So that might add on to your fee depending on how private you want to be as we go. And then we have 2 specific time slots in Kansas City to meet as just OMI, United Church of Canada camps. We're also going to be there with the OMC, the Outdoor Ministries Connection of the United Church of Christ in the States. So there's actually 3 different denominations at this conference who are sponsoring members, or whatever word Joel uses to call us in that. It's not sponsoring, it's something else. Approved members. So endorsing organizations is what we're called. So any questions about that? Who in this call is planning to go to that? Okay. Great.
So, as somebody who's new, is this in place of then there's nothing in Canada?
This year there is nothing in Canada, Gwen. Because there's nothing in Canada. The United Church is. The United Church is that the statement we leave it at? The United Church, this should be the year where we would get funds to do a Canadian conference, but those funds, because General Council got pushed back and camping doesn't get those funds. Amy helped us get some funds out of last year's budget for this year, which is where we can afford to pay 90% of someone's travel fee. And go from there. And at the conference, there are all types of camps, from small. Every camp has someone else in another organization that they can chat with and learn from. So, but it does involve getting on a plane or a long car ride for people. So, yeah. And we, so the other option is, if you want in Canada, there's another conference, but it's not OMI. It's just Pierce Williams hosting Think Camp in the end of November. Think Camp is a very small gathering of 10 to 25 people. It's very intimate, and I don't know how to explain Think Camp any better. It's quiet, it's relaxing, I don't know. But Think Camp is about topics and conversations you want to have. And it's hosted at Pierce Williams, so you can fly into London, Ontario, and we take care of getting you from the airport there. Any questions? Great. Then I don't know that we need to, I think that might be it for the evening. Gwen, can you stay on the call? And I just want to chat with you briefly. That'd be awesome. Thank you, everyone, and have a good night then.